Welcome to the mythology and folklore of the mushroom. Let's go mushroom hunting. Hello my friends, bit of a different video today, and this video is actually a year old. It's that time of year again, the time when all the little mushrooms are poking their little heads out. A little walk today with Tam, who's holding the camera right here, and the dog, and we're gonna look for various types of mushrooms. So I need to make a special briefing at the beginning of this video. None of these mushrooms are for picking. None of them. I don't want you to pick any of these ones. This video is just for informational purposes only, for educational purposes, and for entertainment purposes. Do not pick any of the mushrooms you see in this video. Do not do it! It's wrong and naughty. There. Hello my friends, welcome back. So today, let's hunt for some mushrooms. This is for information purposes only, just to caveat this video. We're going on a mushroom walk. It's quite moist. Let's see what we can find. So this is a very old road behind the farm that's still called Crow Lane for obvious reasons, but Crow Road also means the road of the dead, which is interesting when we're talking about mushrooms. Ideally, if you're looking for mushrooms, you want very wet conditions and ideally some sort of a bit of waste ground that isn't really used for farming or agriculture. If you look at this field here, it's clearly been ploughed, so that'll be no good because the mycelium, which is the fungal network underground, will have all been churned up. But this sort of area and this field we're heading to is ideal. It's really wet underfoot and there's cows grazing here, so it's perfect.
Jump over it.
So this field here is perfect. It's a farmer's field, so need to watch out for that. It's very, very boggy. It has cows grazing in it. You can see there's manure here and it's a lot of water underfoot. So this sort of rough, common ground that hasn't been ploughed is ideal. You found a little mushroom?
I found two tiny ones. I don't know what they are though. And then one here.
It's an imposter. So, ideally, we're looking for patches of this sort of grass, which is a kind of sedge or reed grass, slightly different from a flat blade of grass. It's got sort of, it's round with a pith in the middle. Used to be used for a sort of poor man's candle, this. But usually around the edges of this coarser grass, you can find your little friends. So that's sort of what you're looking for. The margin between this sort of grass and this sort of grass is where they like to grow. So you're looking for nice moist field. This is just to reiterate. You're looking for sedge grasses or sort of marsh reedy grasses like that. Darker clumps of them. That's just an indication that it's a good sort of field. You see them all here. And like I say, sometimes they're grown around the edges of these tufts, but not today. But that just shows we're in the right sort of field. Again, cattle, not ploughed. So again, he's too light, but a similar sort of shape.
That down right there.
Can't really tell because he's too little.
So tiny.
But whenever you see ones like this is a really good sign that we're in the right sort of environment. They pop up, these ones, when you're very, very close. That's a sign you're on the right path. These pale guys. The presence of these little brown mushrooms, which are obviously not what we're looking for, just shows that we're in the right kind of area. Nice moist boggy field with some cow shit in it. Here we go. So here's a little chap right here. You can see this is quite a young one, might have come up this morning. Chestnut brown cap. Telltale nipple on top. You can just see that the stem is a bit reddy, and when they're moist like this, you can see the lines just on the edge of the cap there. That's sort of telltale sign. And their stalks can be very, very, very long. Usually, if you find one, there will be more because they're all connected to the mycelium underground. The mushroom is obviously just the fruiting body. So if you look around in the same place, you'll see lots, and you might not see them first of all, but almost like magic, they'll just begin to pop up. Here, look, there's one that's a bit past his sell-by date. You can see he's gone very black around the rim. But this is quite a young specimen here. Just a word about legality. In the UK now, it's illegal to even pick mushrooms. So I'm not going to do that. Obviously, check the legality in your area. But when I was a kid, when I was 14, 15, rummaging around in the fields, it was legal to pick these and eat them. You only couldn't prepare them, which meant letting them dry out. Then they became a Class B substance. But now, as of the law change, even a fresh mushroom is a Class A substance, even though no one's ever been killed from eating a magic mushroom that I'm aware of. Focus your eyes and just start to look around the same area where you found the last one. They should begin to pop up as if by magic, usually when you've just decided to carry on walking. Look, just walked a pace or two, and there is a very large specimen right there. See how conical he is. Slug lookalikes. Just next to that old conical fella that was a particularly large specimen are these little guys. Now these ones are quite young. Let's see here. Well, I'm just going to check that I'm right. Oh. See, even someone like me who thinks they know what they're doing makes mistakes. So these are not, in fact, look at the colour of the gills. They're too light. I was tricked. This is not of the genus Salacebe similancetta. You see the shape of the cap is a bit too domed, and the gills are out of focus. Yeah, just a different coloration on the gills there. Not quite dark enough. So Salacebe has more of a purplish tinge, a very, very dark, slightly purple tinge to the underside of the gills. Another?
Yeah, I think so. Is this one?
Let's have a look.
It's very young though.
Oh yeah, so that is one just fresh out the ground. You see how fresh and chestnutty he looks. This one is interesting. The size is sort of right. It's right in a lot of aspects. It's just the tone is just a bit too dark red. So that's not what we're looking for. Close though. Another imposter here. Far too reddy brown look. Similar sort of size and shape though. Oh, so a fairly common look-alike there. If you are interested in the subject matter, this is an excellent and very dated book I've had since I was about 15. Don't know if it's still in print, but it has many, 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 many types of little brown mushroom that are available in the UK, including these that shall not be named. So there's those, and plenty of other little brown mushrooms which are growing in our fields and margins. So you can pick that up if you like. It's very interesting and very, very 70s. Look at these hippies. So it's not a mushroom, but good for a mid-foraging snack. This is sorrel. Sorrel. Lovely. We've got company. Uh-oh, they're coming.
Oh, you sweet one. You are so cute.
These are quite feisty, these cows, so especially if you've got a dog not on a lead, always be careful if you're in a field with cows in. But on this occasion, the druid cows led us to the sacred mushrooms. Fine, just half squint your eyes and use your peripheral vision a bit and just sort of scan for the right sort of colour and they will pop up. Have a look. Again, that's sort of more of a waxy yellow cap. You see again the black margin at the bottom there. So another very small one there. I'm always scanning the ground for mushrooms and I'm always taken in by like a bit of sort of straw coloured grass like that. And then I realise it's not a mushroom, but then there is one very, very nearby. So there's almost a sort of interesting, there's a bit of magic to finding them in a way. So here's another one, look. This is an example of a older specimen. So it's exactly the same species. Oops, I picked it, don't tell anyone. But this is older, and you see how the cap is more of a sort of parchment colour, whereas the younger specimen earlier was a bit more chestnut brown. Also, you can see quite black spores underneath there. So I'll just leave that one there. This is another common look-alike here. You see it's sort of superficially similar, but much more pronounced grooves on the cap, and the cone shape is a bit too spread out. Also very much white underneath, so that's not what we're looking for. So look how similar this guy is. I thought this was a cap when I spotted it. So look how similar that is. Nice ready stalk. Gill's not quite right, that's the giveaway. But very pronounced nipple on top and that nice chestnut colour. But alas, that is not quite what we're looking for. Thing to note, if you are in the UK and looking for mushrooms, no little brown mushrooms, or as very cool people call them, LBMs, none of these can actually do you any danger. None of them can kill you. None of them are particularly poisonous. Maybe you might feel a little bit unwell, but you're not going to poison yourself with little brown mushrooms. Poisonous mushrooms in Britain are usually much larger. Amanitas they're usually white. So yeah, watch out for the larger ones, not the small guys. Chickweed here. Look at the little flowers. Common stance of the mushroom hunter. Usually bent over. This is actually the best height to be at when looking for a mushroom, about 4 feet off the ground.
So maybe get your children involved.
So again here, a common look-alike. It's got the dark gills, so check, but they're a bit too grey coloured again, not purple brown. The colour is almost right for a slightly more aged. But again, the dome on the head, so kind of 2 out of 3 there. The dome on the head is too domed, not pointy, not lance shaped enough for us. So this is a good thing to watch out for. Some sort of grass or dried grass on the surface, maybe with a bit of manure nearby. This often is a really good substrate for mushrooms to grow out. Dried sort of hay or grass here, which would be a really good substrate. Some cow manure for nutrients. It wouldn't be growing out of that, but they would normally be growing maybe along the edge here.
I think this guy's got the nipple on.
Mm-hmm.
Is it right?
Mm.
Look how big they are.
So these are very similar looking.
Oh,
But they're not the right guy.
not even this one.
No, not even that one. So he's got a nipple on him, see? But there's just the colour is a bit too reddish. And again, there's sort of slightly grey gills rather than the blacky purple.
What about this one?
I think that is a petticoat mushroom. Yeah, no, that's the same again. So a very, very similar look-alike, and usually an indication that you're looking in the right kind of habitat. So some people say that Mushrooms were only sort of discovered in the 20th century, around the time that synthesized. I think that's probably not true. You think about our ancestors, how well connected they were with all of the aspects of the natural world. You see all the foraging plants I've just found on this walk today, which would have been staples. It's hard to believe they did not know about these mushrooms and their effects. But perhaps it didn't really make its way into very many textbooks or historical narratives. What there, Tam?
Well, my Halloween mask.
So a word about nomenclature, what a wanker.
Who's nomenclature? Who's nomenclature?
So a word about naming. We commonly call we usually call this mushroom liberty cap as the common name. That's sort of named after the a type of hat that is conical that was very popular in the French and American revolutions. So it's sort of makes sense, really. It's the sort of mushroom of liberty and liberates your mindset from the shackles of society and mainstream thought. But there's another folk name for this mushroom in this part of the world, in the West Country in southwest England. They're often called witch caps, or elf hats, or goblin caps. You can see why, of course, this beer in my hand, there is a goblin on it, and you can see the sort of hat he's wearing. It's sort of conical hat, very much like the shape, the lance-like shape of the. So very interesting that in the folk naming we have a link between between elves and fairies and goblins and these supernatural magical entities and this mushroom. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Other beers are available.
Behind me, regularly ploughed and sowed for crops, sort of arable land, so not much good for mushrooms. So it takes such a long time for the underground network of threads and mycelium, which can spread, in some cases, for miles underground. It takes such a long time for that to form, and as soon as you rotivate the ground, that's all just torn up. So you will only get a healthy mushroom life in fields that are not regularly ploughed. Field margins here. See this? Again, it's not what we're looking for. This is called, I believe, a harvest mushroom or a haymaker. Again, it's the right sort of colour, but a bit too yellowy, this one, even for an old. And again, it's got a bit of a nipple, but the cap is just too domed. So very, very similar. That's probably the most similar looking mushroom. And also the gills, look, are too butter coloured. They're not dark enough. A mushroom. This is a parasol mushroom, and it's very good eating. Only slightly eaten by worms. That'll do with our chickweed for breakfast tomorrow. What's this then? Yeah, an all white, largish mushroom. Probably best to avoid something looking like that. Ah, my arch nemesis, the frog. There you go, mate. Come on. But these mushrooms, a bit about naming, a bit about folklore of naming. We usually call them quite a recent thing. The sort of it was first used by freed Roman slaves, sort of conical, kind of elf hat, really. But then the style was taken up by revolutionaries in the French Revolutionary War and the American Revolutionary War, sometimes put on a stick as a sign of freedom. And that hat on a stick, of course, very much resembles mushroom. And the synchronicity is interesting because, of course, these mushrooms do represent a kind of liberation of the mindset, as I think I've already said. As I mentioned, in folk naming in this part of the world, you often hear them called witch caps or elf hats, which for me is an indication of their association with witchcraft, with magic, and with the fairy folk or the others. And this makes total sense when you eat these safe and legal environment. They seem to connect you to something other. They've got a very witchy feel, particularly as opposed to other mushrooms that you might be familiar with, such as this, which are much larger, which have a bit of a brighter vibe. Also, LSD, much more synthetic and brighter visuals. These mushrooms they're dark and they feel like from the earth, and they've got a lot of sort of nature aspects to them, to the visuals, to the feeling. They feel like witchcraft, and indeed I believe there's not really any evidence for this, but I think it's highly unlikely that cunning folk and herbalists of this land would not have been aware of this very common mushroom and would not have used it, perhaps around this time of year, because obviously Halloween is coming up next week, for ways to get closer to earth energies, spirits of the other world, spirits of the dead, and the spirit of I don't know, the plant magic and life, the planet itself. Very, very strong sense, even with a small mushrooms, that the universe is essentially alive, which is a fundamental principle of animism, which I talked a bit about on my last video, The Lady of the Lake. I will put a link to that video now. I will make another video in the future about some personal stories and experiences of mine involving these, which may interest you, and I'll be making another video about Halloween probably at the weekend, so stay tuned for that. Thanks guys, see you later.